Hello. Hello, good afternoon everyone. Big warm welcome to all friends of cinema who are interested in knowing what goes into the cinema system. Post-production guys are behind the scene guys. We are the guys behind the screen guys. So I'll start with a brief history on cinema, how it all started. It's going forward or back. So this is the agenda I'll be covering today. As I mentioned, I'll start with a brief history. Then I'll follow with standards, acoustics, screen, and installation tips. Basically, it all started with the invention of Lumiere brothers, and first screening was done way back in 1895. And the unit they invented was coupled projector and camera itself. And in India, the first screening was done in Watson Hotel, 1896, again by Lumiere brothers. This was small 50-second short films run. And our Indian cartoon, I thank our Indian counterparts that we are all here together, Dada Saheb Phalke. And first talkie release, the sound, was a jazz singer, US. And then the first in India was Alamara in 1931. So earlier everybody knows there was no sound on the picture. So this movie changed the history of the cinema experience by introducing sound. And the major key players were Vitaphone, RC and Vestrex. And this is one of the earlier speaker I want to show you. The height was almost 5 feet. It was almost 5 feet wide with 15-inch 4 LF and 2 HF with a concentric lens to cover the wide range at the back of the body. And the amplification was also very poor. They had a wall amplifiers to drive this amplifier, and the power was not more than 25-30 watts. So it forced them to design a very high sensitive speakers so we can produce good SPL level with low power amplifiers. So this is for the people who are new to this cinema sound. So these days, SI guys are more lucky, I will tell them, because they have to deal with a D-cinema sound where you have a projector and server to cater with. Earlier days, we had a film projectors, it had a sound head. The sound used to convert from optical to electrical. Then you have to amplify it and bring it to processor, crossover and amplifier chain. And it all started from films. As you can see, the first track recorded on film was a mono single track. Then it developed onto dual mono, stereo, and Dolby also improvised thing by introducing SR and digital formats. And Sony was the first one to bring in the 5 screen channel concept with introducing inner left and inner right. In D-Cinema, it's fairly simple. You have 5.1, 7.1 and multi-channel encoded output for audio also. So this is representative of how the tracks were laid on the films. It's a mono track, dual mono or stereo. Then we have a Dolby encoding. And this is sum of all tracks. If you have all formats where they are placed on the film. Left hand side is SDTS, center is Dolby. In between is the stereo optical or SR, and right hand side is the DTS time code. The DTS concept, you must be knowing that it plays a separate audio from CD and the cue is given from this time code. Anybody has idea when this thing, the concept brought into practicality, and who has patented it earlier on this? I won't keep you waiting. The patent was taken in 1910 by Vitaphone for a sync sound. So it's a fairly old concept. This is close look at the film. Now if anybody wants to go for a new film format, anyway it's going to be obsolete, but there's no place to put a new format on the film now. All estate is sold. So this is a signal chain, how the cinema sound is brought into the reality by producing sound by speakers. Film projector, you have audio out from the sound add, which goes into processor. And from cinema server, you have a straight analog or AAS out. Again, this is mentioned in different formats. This is a complete signal chain for DLP and film projector. You can see the film projector is the most complicated one, which has a 4 source of sound, a normal stereo optical, then Dolby Digital, then Sony SDDS, and DTS timecode reader. And nowadays, the things are much more simplified. You have one DLP projector, 1D cinema server catering to sound. This typical setup of 5.1 or 7.1 format. You have 3 screen channels, 2 surrounds and 2 rear surrounds. So earlier days I told you the speakers were not that efficient, amplifiers were not that efficient, and there were a lot of companies started manufacturing speakers and amplifiers. So there was no consistency in the sound. So group of engineers sat down and come out with a standard solution. They devised a curve which was accepted by Academy of Motion Pictures also, the people who give the Oscar awards. You can see it was hardly flat from 100 Hz to 1.6 kilohertz. This was due to limitation of dynamic range and the equipments available. So this is a modern day curve. Now we have a better equipments and good amplifier speakers, no limitation on power, no limitation on dynamic range. But still we have a roll-off at 2 kilohertz and lower roll-off earlier was 60 and now it is around 40, it will still go down. The people are wondering why we have a best of equipment, but why we are still rolling at 2 kilohertz. So the X curve. This is when you play a sound in auditorium with a good acoustics. So HF has a tendency to go down by several dBs after 2 kilohertz. So that principle is taken into account and we follow the same thing. And it gives a better sound and you have that cinema essence of if you follow this curve also. So these are the 5 most factors which can affect the sound. You should have a good speaker system and good amplifier to support it, good acoustics, a good screen. And 5th is also utmost important because the B chain, if it is not done properly, however your expensive system you have put, it is not going to sound that good. It's going to sound as an average system only. So B chain can make or break a system. So it's very important step to carry it out by a good known engineer with a good equipments. So I'll brief you on all the factors slowly. Acoustics. So everybody knows you should have a good damping, not much of damping, slightly reverberation also is preferred, but no early reflections and other anomalies. As I mentioned, the room should be free of acoustical defects like distant echo, flutter echoes, picket fence echoes, room resonance. Because the bars will also linger on if it's not damped properly. And earlier days we had a chairs with metal base and they used to fold up. So that used to give rise to picket fence echo also in a lot of cinemas which if acoustic is not done properly. The screen is also important for your visual and sound experience, and the main thing is the type of screen for visual effects and perforation for sound clarity. If perforations are too small, then you lose out on HF information. And if they are too large, you suffer on the visual part because you'll start seeing a grainy picture. I need to follow certain viewing angle things to have a best visual experience. Otherwise, the people sitting in front will have a neck strain or they will be uncomfortable for a long hours of viewing. This is the utmost important thing when you are going for a new speaker system for your auditorium. The earlier days, we had a parameter of setting 105 dB peak level at 2/3 auditorium. 2/3 is the distance from the screen to the rear wall. You need to have a length from screen to rear wall, and you have sorry for the division at the 2/3 length. You have a sweet spot where we put the microphone also for calibration. So at that spot, you need to produce at least 105 dB peak level. But looking at the today's aggression in sound recording and demand and dynamic range, I would prefer to have a 105 dB continuous peak level designed for your speakers. So it will meet all your requirements of having loud sound and handling loud level recordings without damaging your drivers or amplifier. So this is the point I always emphasize. Do not compromise on your bread and butter area, because your cinema is also like a factory and your projection and sound equipment is like a machine which gives you the production output. If your machine is not correct, so your output is also going to go down and your production will also suffer. And another main point is to have a good system is to recreate the sound image which was created in post-production. So my colleagues are working hard day and night, sound mixing guys, I'm talking about post-production guys, to recreate the image and sound combined to give you a visual and oral experience. If there is a recording of beach scene with a breeze blowing and the ocean waves striking on the sand, so they mix the sound in such a fashion that you feel that you are sitting in between of the scene and you are hearing the sound. If you close your eyes, it feels like that you are sitting on sand in front of the sea and the breeze is coming back or all around you. And you can always specify a larger system for a smaller house because it's not going to hurt, because you have ample of power and volume also you can increase as per the demand of the people. But if you have a compromise on a system, a smaller system is installed in a bigger house, then you are not going to be able to produce the desired level. The same thing I talk about sweet spot. Your level might drop to 102 dB. And people at the back won't hear the sound much clearly as the people in front and center are having it. So these are also important points. When you install a system, your speakers need to be placed in a proper place with the towing and angles. So as you can see, all the screen speakers are focusing at the 2/3 sweet spot, and slightly toe-in is also given to focus left and right. A lot of people have a tendency of keeping speakers straight. So you lose out HF part on the center and the extreme left, and same for the right speaker, center and extreme right. So this converges the complete sound image towards center, and you can feel the image on both the left and right side of the screen also. And it makes a good difference on high frequency response, vocals, and all complete dynamic range. And for two-way system, like earlier days, they used to focus the high frequency horn again towards the 2/3 sweet spot at ear level. But certain three-way speakers with asymmetrical horns, this is not mandatory. Only if your seating is having a lesser slope, if you have a stadium seating, then you can keep them straight. If the slope is less, then just hear it out. If you are falling short of HF, then you can tilt it according to the need. Otherwise, it's not required for the asymmetrical horns. Because most of the companies, they have an inbuilt 10-degree tilt for mid and high units. And there's a reason we maintain a height on the screen. Again, that 2/3 calculation comes into play. The speaker's HF is coming at 2/3 of the screen height. For three-way, we slightly raise it, so the mid and high junction is also met at the 2/3 horizontal line on the screen. So you need to raise your speaker by putting a platform behind the screens. We are doing this because this gives you the perception of sound when the actor is speaking on the screen in a close-up, tight close-up, and when he's speaking a dialogue. If your speakers are placed correctly, then you will feel the dialogues are coming out of his lips, not from somewhere else. If I place the speakers at bottom or somewhere high, that perception is lost. That voice is coming from a mouth or lips. It means it helps in a sync also. And if you have a roll down masking, then the masking has to be of a very good quality. It's not attenuate your sound and certain dB levels. And if you are facing the same problem, the level is dropping by 2 or 3 dB, then you need to readjust the level for left and right speakers. Bring down the masking, then adjust your level at 85 for all. But when you lift up the masking, it will go above by 1 dB or so, but people won't make out that difference. And surrounds also, we maintain a certain distance between two speakers, and we follow the height also. The height of surround will always depend on the width of the Audi, and spacing will depend upon the dispersion angle of the speakers, and again the budget, how much surrounds you want to spend. If you are spending less on surround, then distance will increase by 12 feet, and closest you can come is around 8 feet or 9 feet for normal. And for a multi-channel audios, it can come up to close around 6 feet. Then height, again, as I told you, it depends on the width. For 35 feet Audi, around 10.5 to 11 feet is good enough. For 45 feet, 12 feet is good enough. For more than 55 feet, you can raise it till 12.5. And for extra width Audi, you can raise it till 14 feet also. And focusing of surround, there are two ways to focus them. The ideal way is as shown in the diagram, you focus them in the opposite wall junction. And second is to focus them at the opposite wall's ear level seat, last seat, ear level. There are two ways and both are working fine. And surround speakers distribution. Earlier days, a lot of guys must have seen there are only 1 or 2 amplifiers to cater the 18 surrounds in the auditorium, which are 6 on the left, 6 on right, and 6 on rear. So for a 5.1 system, 1 amplifier used to drive all, because people used to do series parallel combination, and to cut down the cost, on 1 amplifier they were running all surrounds, but you suffer with degraded sound quality, constant failure of high frequencies, constant failure of internal crossovers that a lot of people must have faced. The best is to not use more than 3 surrounds per channel. So that will give you 2.66 ohms, and you can select amplifier accordingly. And this is a safe bet, so you'll have a good amount of level, and frequency response also won't suffer. Subwoofer placement, this is again subjective. Most preferred place is on the floor. Keep them on the floor. If I have to keep a subwoofer over here, in an actual cinema, I'll put a subwoofer on the floor, then I'll cut a hole in front of it, then put acoustical transparent cloth in front of it. That's the best way. But majority in India, they stack it on the speaker platform. It also works, but you lose out a lot of power. By putting it on a floor, you are earning at least 5 dB. So it's less load on the amplifier. The mutual coupling also will give you a good amount of SPL level boost. It's always preferred to have it on the floor. If place is not available on the floor, then you can create one more small platform under the speaker platform and you can keep it over there. That also gives you good sound. And always put a padding under the subwoofer because it passes a good amount of vibration to the lower floor. So I had an example in one of the Cineplex where they had a shopper stop underneath the screen, and in a hurry, the installer had forgotten to put the neoprene padding subwoofers. So the first day, the shopper stop guys came complaining that their products are falling off the shelf. So the client called me, I just told them to put a rubber padding, it will solve the problem, no need to do any other structural changes. And it really helped. The moment I put the subwoofer, that problem is resolved. Padding was put, the problem was resolved. This is also another area where people like to cut down the cost wiring, but it's not a good practice because if you use an inferior gauge of wire, you lose on power as well as the frequency response also. If you want to save the cost, the best thing is to go for 4 square mm and 6 square mm fire gate wire cable also. A lot of people have used the electrical installation cables, wires also for the cinema installation, which is not a bad thing, but you need to make sure that it's a fireproof grade and it's certified by the ISI, Indian standard and foreign standard also. You make sure always your electrician does a job of providing you home run of cable. So wire from speaker to projection room goes directly without any splice or joint. Because most of the cases I've seen that red wire starts for LF from here and it turns out to be yellow in the projection room. Because that fellow ran out of the red wire, so he did have a bundle of yellow wires. He put a splice and brought a wire over there. But that's a wrong thing because you don't know, you might end on the speaker polarity also. And again, one joint means several dB down. Your signal will go down by at least minimum 1 dB. Electrical consideration. This is also one of the missed out thing on when you are installing a projection and sound equipment. Nowadays, everybody is going for the UPS. But you make sure the UPS has a dedicated neutral, not the floating like which is available for computer and other UPS. And always make sure the phase is always on the right hand side of the socket. In India, we have a tendency whenever the electrician finishes up the job, he'll come out with the bulb in his hand, he'll show you, he'll plug it in and switch it on, it's working, it's okay. But you make sure the connection with all neutral, earth and phase neutral, phase earth, and neutral earth is also important because it will give you idea of proper earthing. If it is more than 1 volt or 2 volt, then definitely you have some problem in your earth. 5 volt is the exception I would allow, but if it is more than that, then you might end up with humming and other issues which are very difficult to trace, that a lot of people must have faced it also. The best thing is to have a good pit earth coming straight from the pit to projection undisturbed, directly to the projection equipment, not touching any other equipment. Concession equipment can do with the panel earth, but not the projection equipments. They need a dedicated earth. But dedicated earth also has to be of a standard. You just can't put a copper rod or something, put some charcoal in it and close it. You need to have a salt, charcoal and other combination metal, and that pit earth also needs maintenance because they become dry very fast in summer and all. So you need to make sure that they are wet. I would advise you to have a lot of pit earth, at least 4 or 5 if you are having one screen and other equipment, because they often fail, then you need to switch over to another splitters also. And as I mentioned, you should have a good equipment also. The good RMS meter will give you the exact reading of voltage, because local stuff will have a variation of 3 to 4 volts also when you are measuring AC voltage. So this is also one of the important steps. After installing the system, you need to start aligning the sound head and the speakers. But sound head is the first to align. This is related, A chain is only related to film projectors, where we had a sound head which had earlier had a normal bulb and a photo cell. The bulb used to dim out over the period, so you need to raise the voltage to increase the lumens or replace the lamp. Then in the latest days, we have laser lights replacing the lamps, but still the laser LEDs also lose their intensity, so you need to tweak those intensity to get your levels higher. So that process is known as A chain, and B chain is setting of X curve and all your standard levels. So this is how the sound head looks like. It has a light source and a reader. The sound on a print, which is in a light form, which is transferred to electrical by using this unit, and a signal is fed to processor for further amplification. In B chain, first thing you start setting your speakers roughly at 85 dBs, left, center, right, surrounds 80 to 82. Subwoofer is again subjective, maybe between 88 to 92 dBs. Once your primary levels are set, then you start aligning system by one, left, center and right. That means you start EQing each and independent channel. So left is also tuned to the X curve, center is also tuned to X curve, right, then followed by surrounds and subwoofer. As I said, this is a process which can make or break your system. A person has to have a very good knowledge of crossover points, sensitivity of speakers, power of speakers, distortion, and also he should have a good amount of equipments, not like your old day LED RTAs. LED RTAs, only a couple of them were good, not all are up to the standards. The best thing is to have a computer-based system like Smart Live or Systune. This will give you more accurate reading and good reading of waveform, then you can decide where to cut and where to boost your frequencies. The boosting of frequencies too much is also not allowed. The variation we have is plus or minus 3 dB. If you are forced to boost above 3 dB, then you are putting your system into danger for blowing of high speakers, mid, or whatever frequency. For LF, mid or high, you have boosted above 3 dB, then there are likely chances that you might damage the driver. So don't try to go above 3 dB. And if you are still falling short of certain gain on that frequency, you can do with it, because people won't hear difference between if you are falling short of 1 or 2 dB on 600 Hertz range, and you have a dip in your RTA waveform, it doesn't matter, because you have boosted 3 dB, still a 1 dB gap is there. Just leave it like that, because people won't make out that 60 Hertz make 1 dB is less. So overall, you should see the overall performance of the graph and try not to over EQ it. And too much cutting beyond also will result in dull sound. So futurist sound, as you know, we have gone from 7.1 to 16 channel to 32 and maximum 64 channels. So depending on your budget, you go for a system. Can I go with the last slide? Okay, this is representative of a 180-degree cinema. The people are standing, it's most of it kind of an amusement park and all. So you have a vision from your left to right eye, complete the screen is covered and sound is moving all around. So this earlier was in amusement park, now the cinema system also is become a reality with Dolby and Auro system. You have a similar kind of sound, immersive effect and location sound. It's coming from top or side or rear. Okay. One more thing I would like to bring, wherever I make a design, so we always start with the high end because we want to give you the best of the design. So it will be having a good response with our headroom is also good. It can handle loud levels, signals also. But as in India, everybody knows it comes down to budget. So it's very difficult to explain them advantages of having a good system with headroom and power. So that's what inspired me to make this slide. You can see when the cinema you are making budget of cinema, the things are lined up. These are just graphical representatives. Foyer is the number one, followed by lounge, concession, restroom. You can see projection and sound system is almost at the bottom. This is post budget. When everything is lined up, then you go for cutting edges, final stage, budget decision, and what happens to projection and cinema sound. They are the first one to go out. The cut down starts with the projection and sound system. That is what my observation is always. But again I said, you are compromising your bread and butter area. So please give attention to this system also, because the people are there for the visual and sound effects and they want to enjoy the movie. So if you have a good system, definitely they are going to come back. So these are the facts I've seen over my past experience. The moviegoers, they spend less time in foyer and they come to see the movie, they sit inside, look at the screen, hear the sound, then be a part of the movie. So money spent on good quality and sound projection is definitely worthwhile. So always buy a genuine equipment where the company has spent years in research and development of quality and they are keeping pace with the market. Not like other corporate stuff. That's the bottom line. So I'm open to any questions regarding cinema. Hope I was not going too fast because it's very big topic to cover in small time.
It was very good session in small time. My question is, you talked about wiring.
Yes.
So unlike in our regular gadgets or home theater system, which is now more Bluetooth driven without wireless,
Yeah.
in cinema also future, is there any technology that can we expect which replace on Bluetooth or similar?
No, you can
Or
do.
speaker? Thank you.
You can do wireless system for signal, but for the power output, there is no option. You need to wire them physically. And signal also, if you have placed your rack behind the screen, then you need to send signal from server or other part which is on other area. Then you can do wireless transmission by using microphone, wireless microphone thing putting in a line. But you are spending more money on it, so it doesn't suit the money.
Future in those lines, anything it can be replaced?
It's difficult because my power amp output goes till 80-90 volt. So to handle such a large amplitude signal on wireless, I think it will take a long time in the future.
Can you elaborate a little about the Dolby Atmos and how much time it will take to become like in every screen? Does it really make a difference? Is the experience more enjoyable and so on?
Yeah, definitely, because as I said, normal there is 8 channel maximum now, 7.1, and Dolby caters to maximum 64 channels, but you can't put all 64 because there are limitations on the audio size. So number of speakers you have put, they are each channel. And again, depends on the recording also. because the whole movie, it's not a completely recorded in it. Only the action scenes or whichever the scenes which have, then the recording is there and then the speaker will come into play. And another thing was the cost also is a big effect. Not everybody can afford to have a Dolby system. So the people are coming with a cost-effective solution of 16 channels again on that. And it's again subjective. If you are trying to put it in a B town where your audience is limited, then again it depends on you. If you have a budget, you can put it. I don't know how the ROI will be affected on that.
Do we have any more questions or queries? I think there's a gentleman there raising his hand.
Hi Samir, thanks for the session. With the medium-sized cinemas coming up and most of the content being in 5.1 and 7.1, we tend to lose some speakers normally. So would it be better to go for 5.1 with tri-amplification or a 7.1 with bi-amplification? What is more advantageous for the cinema, let's say mid-size?
Advantage is always with the more number of channels for speakers. That is from two-way to three-way will always sound better. Three-way to four-way will also sound better. And that too going active, not through the passive crossover. And for the surrounds 5.1 or 7.1 and most of the design, I've seen if you have 2 or 2 or 3 plus 3. If you have a 3 plus 3, then you have a default 7.1 system. And most of the cases, you need only one amplifier and change of input to convert from 5.1 to 7.1. Because speakers remain same, only the signal is changing. So I would suggest to always to go for a 7.1 system. It's not going to make much difference. And again, it depends on your budget. You can put 4-way also for your medium-sized cinema because it's going to be sound ultimate. And 2-way or 3-way, again it's your budget thing. But instead of 2-way biamp, definitely 3-way triumph will sound any day better.
Anyone else who would like to pose a question or a query? No, I don't think there are any more questions.
Okay, thank you gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
For your time. I would like to thank Big Cinema Expo for giving this opportunity and my friend Raghav and Ankush and Vinay for creating this thing to speak for all of us as a cinema industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise and your experience with us. I'm going to request Mr. Raghav to present Mr. Samir Mistry with a small token of our appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for him.